Could this be the year for Ole Miss? In just 4 years in Oxford, Lane Kiffin has led the Rebels to 2 double-digit win seasons and 2 New Year's Six bowl games. The only thing that's missing is a berth in the college football playoff. And now, with the 12-team format, the Rebels absolutely are contenders and absolutely can get there. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, ready to break down the Ole Miss Rebels, their schedule, their record for this upcoming season. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home of our exclusive expert picks, some of the best spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the entire country, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 6 years, and we will make it 7 by seasons in. So go sign up for those today. Go sign up for our weekly newsletter. That's free of charge over on thegridironexpert.com as well. We want you to check it all out, all the stuff in the description to become a member of our GE Nation, because you're not going to want to miss out on what we've got coming to you on our website and on the channel all season long. So Lane Kiffin, man, he's done a phenomenal job with this Ole Miss program. He is the portal king, as people have dubbed him. He is winning. He's winning big. 11 wins for Ole Miss last year. The first 11-win season in program history. Can't really get much better than that. Won their bowl game, a New Year's Six bowl game over Penn State, and now expectations are very high in 2024, especially now with the expanded playoff. Take a look at the offense. It's always elite, right? Lane Kiffin's an offensive-minded guy, so you would expect nothing less. 35.1 points per game and over 460 yards per game. That's what they averaged last year. This season, loaded with talent. Jackson Dart, their veteran quarterback, returns after throwing for over 3,300 yards, 23 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions. Ulysses Bentley and Rashad Amos back at running back. Amos transferring in from Miami, Ohio, where he rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. A massive pickup to give this team some running back depth, especially after the loss of Quinshon Judkins to Ohio State. The wide receiver core, my God, is it loaded. You've got Trey Harris, you've got Jordan Watkins, and they added Antoine Juice Wells from South Carolina. They are loaded in the pass-catching core, and the offensive line will be one of the best in the nation, 222 combined starts up front. This is unreal for Ole Miss. They will have one of the best offenses in the nation this year. Defense. Everybody likes to talk about Ole Miss and their offense and how good they are, and everybody seems to forget about how good the Ole Miss defense is. Widely underrated. And last year was their best unit so far under Lane Kiffin, allowing just 22.5 points per game, 382 yards per game. They do lose 3 of their top 5 tacklers, but their leading tackler, Trey Washington, does return at safety. You've got John Saunders in the secondary along with him returning. Those two players both had 3 interceptions on the year, so 6 interceptions between Washington and Saunders. Jared Ivey returns up front on the defensive line after leading the team with 5.5 sacks. And then let's talk about some of the transfers that Lane Kiffin added. You've got the Conference USA sack leader, Chris Hardy, transferring in after posting 8.5 sacks with Jacksonville State last season. Walter Nolan was a massive pickup, transferring in from Texas A&M. Chris Paul, stealing him, poaching him away from Fayetteville and Arkansas. A massive, massive pickup for Lane Kiffin's defense. This team is going to be very good from top to bottom on both sides of the ball. Offense is great. Do not sleep on the Ole Miss defense. Defense wins championships. Defense was what was going to get you to the playoff, but can they do it? The Ole Miss schedule really isn't bad. This reminds me of their schedule from, I believe, 2022, where the front half is very, very easy. We saw Ole Miss that year start, 6-0, 7-0, and then on the back half, you have 7-0, they went 1-5 down the stretch, right? I'm not saying that's the same case this year, but you look at the schedule and you realize how easy it is up front, and then on the back half, LSU, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, all that on the backside of the schedule. So that's something to watch out for here. Ole Miss is going to get off to a hot start. We know that. How do they manage that back half? When I say hot start, I mean undefeated. Ole Miss will start 6-0, guys. They will start 6-0. Furman, Middle Tennessee, easy wins. On the road at Wake Forest. Yeah, it's a Power 4 team, but not going to be much of an issue against the Demon Deacons. Georgia Southern, no issue there. Kentucky at home, I feel very confident they'll take down the Wildcats. Despite how good Kentucky can be this year and all the talent they bring in, this is the homecoming game for Ole Miss. They have a significantly better offense, and the defense maybe even is better than Kentucky, despite the Wildcats returning 10 starters on that side of the ball. So they will beat Kentucky, and I think they will beat South Carolina, their first trip to Columbia since 2009. SEC cross division, man. It's hard to believe that's the case for some of these teams. They will beat the Gamecocks, who I still think have a lot of issues, a lot of corrections to make on both sides of the ball, namely defensively. Health was an issue for South Carolina last year, sure, but the defense was not very good, and they will struggle against this electric of an offense. So 6-0, just like that for Ole Miss. Now let's get in to the meat of the schedule, the true contenders, what will really prove if Ole Miss is a playoff contender or not. Let's start on the road at LSU. If you remember last year's game, it was one of the best games of the season. Ole Miss won 55-49 in Oxford, a game that featured a combined 1,300-plus yards. Ole Miss had 706 yards of offense. LSU had 637 yards of offense. The Rebels had 317 rushing yards on the day. I mean, it was a great game to watch. So much fun. This year, don't expect it to be the same, right? Don't expect it to be as high scoring. Don't expect over 1,300 yards of offense. This is a tough game for the Rebels, guys, and they do not play well in Death Valley. They have not won at LSU since 2008. And while, yes, LSU does lose tons, they've got a very capable quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier, and their their front seven is very, very solid, very dangerous. Their secondary should improve. It was horrendous last year. Hard to get much worse than that. I think they take a step forward, especially under their new defensive coordinator. LSU in Death Valley, one of the most difficult places to play in the country, gets the job done, gets revenge over Ole Miss, and the Rebels take their first loss. They're 6-1. Comes at a great time, though. A bye week to regroup, rest up, to come back home to take on a good Oklahoma team. An Oklahoma team that in their first year in the SEC wants to be able to say they're contenders. They have the talent to be contenders, but they have a very difficult schedule that might prevent that. Ole Miss, I do think, beats the Sooners here. They have the significant offensive advantage, even though I do believe the Sooners will have a stingy offense or a good offense. Defensively, I actually give the edge to Oklahoma. They're going to have one of the best defenses in the country if they can stay healthy, but home field advantage is going to be the key for the Rebels in this game, plus the week of rest as well. Oklahoma going to be a little beat up too. They get the win. They've got their 7th win of the season, and then it's on the road at Arkansas to kick off a big month of November. Arkansas, Georgia, on the road at Florida, and then Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. I think we can feel pretty confident that's a win. We'll get to that in a second. This is where things are getting tough, though. In this age of the 12-team playoff, you could probably afford 2 losses. You could probably afford 2 losses and still get in. Will it come to Arkansas? Will it come to Georgia? Will it come to Florida? Will it happen at all? It is going to happen. I think it's going to happen in Arkansas. And I know for everybody who starts freaking out about this, look at the stats, guys. This is a massive, massive trap game. You've got Ole Miss coming off a big win against Oklahoma, high on themselves, against an Arkansas team that probably is going to be mediocre. They might overlook the Hogs a little bit in preparation for that Georgia game, that big Georgia game they've got at home. So you overlook the Hogs a tiny bit there. Factor in history as well. Arkansas and Ole Miss always play each other close. Arkansas was horrendous last year and nearly beat Ole Miss in Oxford. They only lost 27-20. They led the Rebels by 3 in the 4th quarter. They were winning that game in the 4th quarter before Ole Miss woke up and ended up only winning by a touchdown. The Rebels went to Fayetteville back in 2022, trailed 42-6 before ultimately losing 42-27. They beat the Hogs by 1 in 2021. They lost in Fayetteville by 12 in 2020. They have not won in Fayetteville since 2008. And since 2008, 8 games between Arkansas and Ole Miss have been decided by 1 possession. They have split those, 4 for Ole Miss, 4 for Arkansas. The Razorbacks, new offensive coordinator by Petrino. That was their issue last year, was the offense, not their defense. The defense has, for the most part, traditionally kept Ole Miss in check. They did it last year in Oxford, and the defense is going to be better than they were last year. The Hogs at home, maybe with their backs against the wall in a make-or-break year for Sam Pittman, gets the job done. It's close. It's close. But they do beat Ole Miss. Feel very confident about that too. So with that being said, Ole Miss has now taken their 2nd loss of the year. Now their backs are against the wall because they're not getting into the playoff with 3 losses. That's not happening. They're not getting the playoff with 3 losses. So they've got to win out if they want to make the college football playoff, or at least have a shot at the college football playoff. Even winning out is no guarantee. Well, they got to play Georgia next at home in Oxford. Can they get the job done against the Bulldogs, who are going to be really, really good this year, as we know? Yeah, I think they do. I know. What, we're losing to Arkansas and you're going to pick us to beat Georgia? You're ridiculous. Not really. No, it's not ridiculous. Funny thing about Georgia, as dominant as they've been over these last few years under Kirby Smart, they have seven true road games against top 15 opponents. Maybe Ole Miss falls out of the top 15 after a loss to Arkansas. Maybe they don't, but arguably they are still a top 15 caliber team. They have top 15 caliber talent. Georgia hasn't faced that many teams in true road environments that are this good. And that's just been a product of playing in the weak SEC East. Now the conference no longer has any divisions. They don't play many games like this. High-quality teams on the road. Yes, last year Ole Miss lost 52-17. But the offense for Ole Miss can hang with Georgia. No doubt about it. One would argue that Ole Miss owns the offensive edge over Georgia. Sure, the Bulldogs probably own the defensive edge, but Oxford will be rocking for this game. And the power of their home field advantage gets them the win over Georgia, and what I expect to be a much closer, relatively high-scoring game than what we saw just last year. Their backs against the wall, Lane Kiffin's squad delivers. Finally gets that big win. They have failed to beat some of the top dogs over his years. It's kind of prevented them getting to the playoff, losing to Alabama, losing to an A&M, losing to a Georgia, losing to an LSU, something like that that's prevented them from getting that next step. They beat Georgia on November 9th at home, and I do think win their final 2 games after riding that high. The week of rest, they go to the Swamp against a Florida team that might be completely beat down and battered after facing the most difficult schedule in the country. The Swamp will not be easy, but they do get the job done behind the strength of their defense, Ole Miss's defense there. And then at home against Mississippi State, first year under Jeff Levy, who was the former offensive coordinator at Ole Miss from 2020 to 2021. The Bulldogs, though, in for a massive rebuilding project in Starkville. Ole Miss won by 10 last year. I expect them to win by at least 14 this year. They win that game, finish the year at 10-2 for the second year in a row. Maybe you think 11-1 if they beat Arkansas, or maybe you think 10-2 still, but they beat Arkansas and lose to Georgia. I think that would be more likely than anything else. I think the Rebels are losing at least twice on this schedule. I feel confident about the LSU one, and they will lose to either Arkansas or Georgia. I'm going with Arkansas right now. I truly am. It's a major trap game. It's a game where Ole Miss might be caught sleeping, and they do slip up. But 10-2 will still have them in the hunt for the college football playoff. It'll just be very interesting to see what the committee decides to do. They will be in the hunt. They will have an opportunity for it. But regardless, whether they make it or not, and missing it would be, I'd say, rather disappointing. But whether they make it or not, it is a third double-digit win season under Lane Kiffin in 5 years in Oxford. That's unprecedented success that Ole Miss is not used to. Probably didn't expect when they hired Lane Kiffin. Third 10-win season in 5 years under Lane Kiffin. Another massive year for the Rebels, but they will anxiously await their fate for their playoff hopes on Selection Sunday. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. That includes our website, thegridironexpert.com, home to those exclusive expert picks, some of the best spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the country. Go check it out. Sign up for those today, as well as our weekly newsletter, also over on thegridironexpert.com. We want you to take advantage of those things, sign up, and become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.